to come in. Issue and drinking to address. Good.
I've been sacked, Mr. Mayor.
You could go.
I can do anything, can I?
No, I can see your hand.
He's too late.
All good. All right. You're welcome. It's turned 9 o'clock, and I'd just like to declare the meeting open. And I'd like to pay a special welcome to visitors in our gallery. Sampson, Tara Moore, and Linda Forms, who are potential candidates for the coming election. Thank you very much for coming in. If you've got any questions, we'll wait till after the meeting we finish and we'll try and answer them. So I'll continue the live streaming statement. Every the council wishes to advise members of the public that council meetings will be recorded and will be available after each meeting on the council's website. This will be taken to maintain the privacy of those in attendance. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the public gallery, it is assumed your consent is given in the event your image is broadcast. This includes any filming by television cameras, evidence in the general manager or media. Acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the here today on the land of the Wamba forever through the people. I would also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to past Aboriginal elders, the present Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who reside within this area and their future generations. Item 3.4 is statement of purpose. I've come here as a councillor freely and without bias to represent the views of the community in considering matters before us today, to vote in a matter I consider to be in the best interest of the community, and to observe the code of conduct and the respect of the chair and the views of my fellow councillors. We have had a request for leave of absence from Councillor McAllister as he is listed his passing. Someone like to move that was moved by Councillor Wallace, second by Councillor Pratt. Any comments? All those in favour? It's carried. Just to strike it off the record. Minutes of the previous meeting for October the 21st and the extraordinary meeting for the 29th of October are both there. Someone moved that those minutes be received. Moved by Councillor McCrabb, seconded by Councillor Fogarty. All those in favour? Carried. Reports of committees. There is a report from the minutes of the Audit Risk Committee. If someone would like to move that we receive those minutes. Moved by Councillor Crabbe, seconded by Councillor Bull. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now moving along to reports to council. We have a request from the General Manager to include a supplementary business paper, which is the annual report and end of term report 2021. Now, that was circulated out late yesterday. We need to find out whether you want to address that in this meeting or we'll address it in the meeting on the 2nd of December.
Well, yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd rather defer that to the next meeting as we just haven't had enough time to go through it.
I have a bulky document and
Yeah, we need to have time to do it.
I'll think of that.
Any comments?
I do, just brief on Mr. Mayor, there are a couple of typos, that two need to be corrected in it. Good in my please.
Yeah.
First,
Yeah. Yeah, so particularly page 20 and page 48. Yeah.
well, we'll defer that to the meeting in 2nd of December. We haven't got much on. But is there a deadline at all that we have to meet for the annual report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it needs to be done within 5 months of the end of the financial year, which will be the 30th of November. So ordinarily it should be adopted before the 30th of November. However, Council is considering on the 2nd of December the final financial statements. So there's no reason why this can't be included in the same meeting. It will mean we'll be late for that deadline, but I think particularly with the financial statements, we've got sufficient reason to be able to argue that it was unreasonable for us to get.
I'll let them slap me over the wrist if we get time. All right, we're going to move it a second. Any other comments? Councillor Betts.
Can I just comment on the overall report to council and just moving forward, like there's quite a lot of meetings that have been attended with no feedback on any of them, particularly a couple of Dreamtime ones, which I think are quite important. Moving forward, particularly obviously for a new council with so many potential new candidates, is there something we can put in place that committee members need to put in a report, how to say, cut in line, major key points about what they've discussed at some of these things? There's not getting anything back. We've got nothing, certainly for the new council. They're going in blind, absolutely blind for this.
Okay, can we respond to that, Mr. Mayor? Yeah, it's probably it's a good point for the next item on the agenda, which is 10.1. Councillor Betts, I've seen it done in the past where there was provision made in a council meeting for councillors who have attended committee meetings at that point in time, between since the last meeting, to just give up, stand up or provide a brief report, maybe within a 2-minute time frame, to inform their colleagues as well as the community as to what's taken place in committees of council, such as 355 committees, the Memorial Park Users Group, for example, or the Executive Committee. So that's certainly something that can be implemented, and given this is the second last meeting of council and the last ordinary meeting of council, it could be something that can be done in the next term.
I hear what you say, Councillor Betts. Just be careful what you wish for, because you would have a volume of paper 10 times currently what you get. We do these reports of what my meetings and the General Manager's meetings are, and I don't think I've had one question for a long time about what happened at that meeting.
I think through you, Mr. Mayor, I think we've had this discussion on numerous occasions about potential lack of sharing of information, and I've always said you can provide as much paperwork as you like, and it's up to the individual council how little or how much of that they choose to take on board and read. But the fact that it's there and available, I think is only fair. And certainly some of the meetings you're aware of after they've been attended.
Right, and as the General Manager said, that should be decided by the new
Business paper supplementary report to the 2nd of December.
council.
Hasn't been carried, sorry. Hasn't been carried.
As a been carried. Any further questions or comments on referring that to 2nd of December? All those in favour? It is carried. Item 10.1, reports to council, mayor, general managers and councils.
We'll move to the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Fogarty that we received the list of meetings attended. Second by Councillor Metcalfe.
And a comment?
Any question? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just go on to 74. Can we,
Are we allowed to
discuss what some of those meetings you attended or
yeah, or like,
Ask questions on them?
21st, Phil Baxter?
Yes, I attended with members, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. I attended with members of the Murray Irrigation Limited organisation, as well as the CEO of the Berrigan Council. Used to talk about, there's a proposed, was a working group and set up with the 5, what they call the Murray Group of Councils, which is essentially the 5 councils within the Murray Irrigation Limited footprint, to see if we can request funding to upgrade the bridges around the region, particularly in Edward River Council, Berrigan and Murray River, and through to Federation, I believe. And yeah, so we met just to meet and have a discussion with him about the issues that they're, as a major transport player in the region, the issues they're having around bridges and capacity, weight loading and so forth. No decisions made at that meeting.
okay, another one.
Follow on from that, I had a call from the consultant that Murray Irrigation has engaged. I didn't know, but Helen was the lady who rang me, and she's having a discussion with me on Monday morning. I think just to find out a bit of information about the Council. She comes from Sydney or Melbourne, and so everyone knows nothing.
Actually, Murray Irrigation are doing conducting a survey around stakeholder engagement.
And February 26th is the Murray River. Have we leased? Yeah.
We have a preferred tenant, and that those negotiations are underway. So which we engage to get the tenancy, and we'll be able to inform councillors once that's been done.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. So that 26th one, just to clarify, that was in relation to the area of Toyota in along Davison Street. So that part of the Murray Valley Regional Park has the forest type area of discussions with National Parks and Wildlife Service, RFS around reduction in fuel loads coming out of that. I just want to make sure it's different to the Murray Valley. I'm just saying this one was actually around some concerns raised with fuel loads in the forest near the residential areas.
So what were the outcomes of those discussions?
Great outcomes, a great opportunity for the different groups to get together. National Parks and Wildlife Service have a program this year to undertake major burning up in that area, but they'll take some mechanical work in that to reduce the fuel loads. We also had a look around at the old landfill site, because they're very much more concerned with the prevailing winds of fire coming in through there's a bit of corridor coming through there, and in there. So some work that we'll undertake, some work that RFS will undertake, just to provide a buffer along that side of the town. Yes, and that was discussed. So, and that's where it was. That's good. We're getting related. We're getting much better engagement from national parks through the bushfire management committees and that. So I think that's started from national parks very much wanting to engage and work with us.
Okay. Question on the 22nd of October, the Southwest Renewal Energy Zone, just a query regarding that meeting, what that's about. I mean, I know we're in that zone. Is the whole council area in that zone? And what's the brief for those meetings? What are they?
Southwest Renewable Energy Zone is a sort of creation of a certain amount of areas that to encourage renewable energy to be developed. It was the inaugural meeting, so I can't say there was a lot of outcomes out of it. But we have seen quite an uptick in a number of proposals that are provided within our region and beyond for either wind farms or solar energy. The three main ones are two wind farms and a solar farm. Very early days, but it is very much around trying to encourage those sorts of developments to take place in obviously an orderly way. So there is another one coming up next week, I believe.
So is it a state government?
There's 5 zones in the state, right? So this is the area of which our council area's majority is in zone 1.
So we're zone 1 in this area, and it is a state government. So the stakeholders are the councils and the state.
It's a bit of an issue, but I think that the goal is to make power cheaper and less expensive for the
Are those meetings open to just invitation only?
There's we'll have to take it on notice around this particular meeting. Generally, in this one, the mayor and the general manager have been invited to attend. I'm not too sure about whether they're going to accept, other councillors to turn up as observers.
I think it would, over a period of time, might progress to have a wider representation.
I just think that whole energy, like, a lot of their rate players, and
Still back in the interconnects that is being designed and developed at the moment by Central Energy. Transcript, sorry. Yeah, so there's a few people who've seen the opportunities as that's being planned and developed in more detail. So definitely our response to, we met with one of those players yesterday operationally, the infrastructure myself, and they're pretty keen to keep going, and we're obviously reiterating consultation with the community, ensuring that there is a lasting legacy in terms of real impact to the environment and the community, and also that there is some form of reinvestment back in the local community as a result of this. We wouldn't be the planning authority for them, the consenting authority under the Planning Act. It's considered, these projects are considered ones of state significance, but we certainly they're engaging quite proactively.
We're going to move in a second for 10.1. Further questions or comments on those meetings? All right, all those in favour?
Right.
10.2 resolutions of council.
I'll move the motion just with the content. I was just wondering how item 2022-36 is progressing. And perhaps the director of infrastructure might be able to fill us in. Comments
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fogarty. So that, it's been ongoing with Conroy Street. So that's the fence realignment and issues with closing portion of the road and just adjusting the boundary to line up with fence locations and that. So that is when we are ongoing. We haven't spoken to the property owners for a little while. Find out some more information from the surveyors and we'll contact the property owners again. Yes, it is. But renewal.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Been going for quite some time. Yeah, okay.
So moved by councillor Fogarty. Second by councillor McGregor. Councillor Betts?
No, no, I was going to second it.
Any other further questions? And before I go on to the next item, I'd just like to officially welcome our newest staff member. Oh, she's Jen, who's now the finance manager. And welcome and make yourself known tomorrow, please. Item 10.3 is Development Services Report.
Yeah, that's the first. So report 10.3 is the Development Services Report, which outlines approvals and services provided by the Development Services Unit during October. And the report is presented for information.
Moved by councillor McGregor, second by councillor Wallace. Any questions for now?
To comment, and it's not directly at that item, it's more in relation to some of the feedback that was in the customer satisfaction survey, particularly around the planning and development. And I wonder, because that had gone down in terms of satisfaction, do you think that's a result of the introduction of the state portal and the challenges that that's presented? Or is there something we can do to enhance that and bring that satisfaction rate back up again? Yeah, it probably was a bit early to blame it on the portal, but certainly we're feeling that now. It possibly had a lot to do with the staff shortages we were having during that time. And yeah, but that's been rectified. So hopefully, yeah, we roll with the portal, but we have more staff now and things will settle and yeah, the satisfaction rise.
What about our neighbours? Are they experiencing the same problems?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Bit of a fact we're still in this far from.
That's right. Taking their stuff. They were actually moved to a resolution to say they were not going to participate in the portal. So I don't know where they've got to. Yeah, we're not. One of our neighbours was very unhappy. But there's no, it's legislated that we go through the portal and we've got no choice. Yeah. Our only hope is we may be able to have a little bit more flexibility with it, and that's what we're aiming for. That there may be some leeway that there's two ways to lodge your application. You know, if it's too difficult, that you can do it through council. Well, that's okay. Yeah, and that's sort of felt by all councils that we should have that option. Yeah.
That's all.
Thanks, Mr. Beck. Just through the summary, the feedback, we all get feedback about it, and it seems to be the portal. Is there any opportunity to maybe be a bit proactive in terms of offering, particularly some of the trades that are doing a lot of work around it, the builders and your fabricators, a workshop, bring them in together and do a workshop on the portal? Yes. Because I think they all have that, and that would then give the opportunity to have some direction where to go, who to talk to, and streamline it somehow, because the backlog is getting pretty bad on here. We had one initially prior to it being introduced, but it's obviously different. And we've sort of been learning to navigate our way. So I think, we'd be in a position to do that, and we'd be happy to do that, obviously, and just streamline it for people now. We're in the midst of it, so,
Initially, we weren't supposed to be able to help anyone. They're supposed to do their own lodging on the portal and work.
We still can't.
Being flexible.
Well, we're helping them, but they still have to create their own account and that type of thing, because everything has to come back to the applicant. So
they know what to do and the sequence, how to put it in and all this type of stuff. So
coming back and saying, oh, no, that was in the wrong order or something like that.
Yeah.
That's the feedback I'm getting, saying, oh, this is.
Yeah, we've spent a bit of time
Yeah.
sitting with people, so now, if we could get them all together, this is probably opportune now to, help us along a bit, for sure.
We took that as an operational action.
They may be able to identify the particular problems that they're having and find a solution.
Yeah.
It's probably good for you, so.
A little bit more start, saying, so should be on, build it a bit quicker, so.
Mari, just wonder how we go with the dog free farm.
So, we've requested further info about the noise analysis that's been done, and they've gone back to do some more work on that. So, further reporting on the noise assessment. So, we haven't received that info back.
Who's they? Who's they? And you say they've gone back to do some more work.
Well, sorry, we've gone back to the applicant who was the consultant. Yeah, and the consultants engaged their acoustic people to come back in and do some more assessment.
That means it probably won't be a resolution till next
Sure. So we have just received the EPAs, the GTAs from the EPA, which are their general terms of approval. So from we'll prepare a report to council, and that will obviously not go up to next year. Yeah, but we've been waiting on those general terms of approval from the EPA, and we've received those this week. So the next step will be to prepare the report for council.
Information and detail that's required for the development.
Yeah, so the EPA general terms of approval, the conditions were quite specific and quite tighter than I have probably seen before in relation to odour, and any odour complaints received, the course of action that the feedlot manager will have to take to address those, and there's tighter time frames. So I don't know if that's reflective of new conditions that the EPA are using, or whether it's specific to this case. So, but they are quite tight and detailed conditions.
So the onus is on Falklands or Australian Agriculture to make sure they do the right thing.
Yeah, and the EPA are the licensing authority, so all complaints will go to those, and they license them, so they will need to comply with those requirements.
It's fair to say from the last round, they go above and beyond to meet the requirements and some.
Yeah, and they have always responded to it. They obviously need to do that for their license, so yes, there's not choices on it. So certainly, we haven't had any issues with them complying with any requests we've had for further info and things like that. So
I just think it's good to have that knowledge around, because we're having a 50% increase in cattle there from 8,000 to 12,000, and all the problems that we went through with the initial approval for the 8,000 cattle. To me, it seems like coming forward. I didn't think it was their realm, but certainly they stood up and made it very much more notice on Australian Agriculture to comply.
Through Ms. Mantis, we've got to be careful. This is a new application, so careful not to be forming views about the application until the information comes in front of the council. Absolutely, where is the process up to, what information you're waiting for. So it's a bit of a delicate balance to strike around particularly forming views.
Right.
Any further questions on the
Councillor Wallace.
Good morning, mate. You'll know what's coming.
With regard to DA 9621 under assessment, where are we up to with that? When do the objections close?
Simpsons was, I think it may have closed. With a 14-day notification. So I feel like the objections have now closed.
So the people that would have got the ratepayers that have got notice of this would be neighbours
Yes.
and anyone else. So does it go to government departments?
In this case, yes, RFS, because it's bushfire prone.
What about water?
And no, not water. There's another Transport New South Wales and access on.
Highway. So where are we up? Where's the process up to?
So once the exhibition period closed, we're still waiting on getting information back from RFS, which sometimes is quite a process. And also concurrence from Transport New South Wales, so we're still waiting on that, so it won't progress until we receive those.
So is the RFS business, is it a planning issue? Or
Yeah, bushfire prone.
yeah, so would that go to the RFS or would that go to the beach and Mitch type planning people?
No, the bushfire report was prepared and that's been sent off to the RFS. They will assess it and say whether they grant it approve.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further comments or questions? That's all.
That through there was a rigorous change in terms of the rezoning over the years of that there was a proposed larger subdivision proposed, and then the planets changed that to non-conform in terms of different regulations with the size of land and so on. So I think it's been ongoing way back in the vanilla debate, probably going back, I'd say, Mark, 6-7 years.
It was going in that replanning when I turned up to council, so a lot of work.
Stuck the time out.
Any other questions? We've moved and seconded. All those in favour? Yes, carried. On 10.4 major projects program, progress report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just the report to council, regarding progress on the major projects, mainly the ground funded projects, with the attachment there, information on the different projects. Highlighting out of that, Maud Road is continuing very well, and expect that to be completed in the new year. The Estates Building Town Hall project, the Estates Building is progressing well, and the Town Hall is ongoing, having issues with delivery of material with that, but at the moment the contractors are sort of fully on their resource onto the project. You'll note in the attachment we do have any of the funding programs related to the town halls for being read. We have been granted extensions from the funding body to cover where the project is up to. We've just determined that we'll leave that red just so that it highlights it's a high risk project. It's sort of the main project for council and high risk. So just very much so, as councillors aware from the report given by the project manager at the workshop of what we're doing to manage it. So we'll continue to leave that as red. It is being managed, but it's just a highlight that yes, it needs continued vision on that project. The other projects noted, Wary Garden, so that's some works there that unfortunately received no submissions for some recent requests for quotations that we did, so we're just reviewing how we'll deliver that project. and also the restaurant, which is Showground, which again, the front project with the new pontoon going in shortly. I think they're putting in the file next week. Like the contract put in the file for the pontoon. So generally these grant funded projects are progressing well, just with the very much the highlight on completing the town hall project.
Thanks, Barry.
Where's the pontoon going?
So as part of the riverfront development, so we have where the pump out station is, and as part of that we constructed the timber stairway down to the pump out. So when you go down, that's on the left, on the right.
That one building there, that's.
No, down off the front pole. A pontoon in there, sorry, yeah. So when we did that, we had the access going to the left to the pump out, but we also constructed an access to the right, and that's where the new pontoon will be. So it seems to be a good place along the river, and when we went through a consultation, it gives you access to IGA and McDonald's in that area in town, and we would rather have a better access through a pontoon rather than people utilising the pump out area for that. The project does include more work at the existing wharf, which is behind the crossing. At the moment, it's a fixed level, which we've had issues in the past. We'll be constructing a floating pontoon that sits in front of the existing one, so they'll come up and down and make it more useful.
Just a comment, the Maud Road seems to be going very well. I was up there for a drive the other day. However, I'll just make a comment. I hope we've got the foundation of that road up to standard, because if some of these proposed wind farms go ahead, we're talking 100 concrete trucks per turbine and 480 turbines in the wind farms. That's going to put a lot of pressure on the
Expectations with all those projects that they would upgrade the infrastructure to any infrastructure and any inroads to those sites would be upgraded to handle that traffic, and then would be made good at the end of the project.
Yeah, you've got that in writing, Mr. General.
Well, I think just to be on that, the issue for our ratepayers is those roads with self-grids on them that are the ratepayers. It's up there, it's not up to. Well, I don't know what the situation is with councils. Council include, when they do a condition assessment of the road prior to the work, do they include the grids, or is that something that the ratepayers have to negotiate with the energy company?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is something that will act on behalf of the ratepayers and property owners for. You know, I don't think if we're talking with them and negotiating with them regarding maintenance of the whole road, I think that we've got a part to play there just to help out. Just
council sets the standard of the grids.
We set the standard for the grids, the conditions and that, but yeah, I'm comfortable that we include that in our discussion.
Yeah, we've got the report. Does someone like to move the recommendation of the report by Councillor Betts?
And the comment, for me, it was an absolute delight to go through the town hall last week and have an inspection of the town hall, and the quality of the workmanship that's being achieved is absolutely outstanding, and a real credit to the current contractor. They seem to have gone above and beyond expectations, given that it is such a sensitive building. They've really taken that into, both buildings are quite sensitive, but they've really taken that into account in the works that they've done. My other comment is a comment in regards to wearing gardens and the weeds. We seem to be just observe some of the work that's going on there, and although yep, the weeds are coming out, it's almost like, yeah, they seem to be growing back as fast as they're coming out. And have we got another alternative plan?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fogey. Yeah, I've made that observation as well. So talking with the group at the moment around that issue. We did engage the group to bring them down, which was always going to bring them down below the water line, raise the water again and then give that. There are some methods, reduction methods, biological and chemical that are just coming onto market now. So we feel in the next season that they'll be available. But we're still talking with the group about finishing off the job. The intent was to knock them all down below water level. We do have alternatives where we were looking a few months ago around the availability of the harvester coming in. Now, issues with border closures and that meant that we've taken the option we have, but that's always an alternative plus with council staff. So we're definitely looking at ways, because at the moment it's not the outcome for the works to date that I was anticipating. So I'm following. Absolutely.
We don't want to have our own Sydney Harbour Bridge when once you finish, you've got to start again.
No, and that's the future chemical and biological ways of doing it. We don't see this mechanical work being the ongoing way of dealing with it. We just these methods waiting for some final approval and using waterways.
Any further questions?
Yes,
Councillor Walsh.
Mike, on a stimulus funding, P2, the buildings that I noticed we're under design and detailed design at the moment. How are all those buildings we're spending dough on down Memorial Park, how are they going to cope with the flood? Are they designed for
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. Yeah, so part of the designs of the buildings are that they are designed for flood. So we do the type of construction that we have is we go construction in that way. They are, because they're non-residential buildings, we don't need a floor level. So councils will be aware when the residential buildings level, it's outside of the industrial buildings don't need to do that, but the design also needs to go around that it will be unfortunately, that can mean the buildings are more industrial in nature, like the finish of them. But that's the trade-off. There's going to be a trade-off between where they're sited, and I fully support using floodplain land dual purpose for recreation. That's sort of the trade-off. Buildings tend to be a bit more industrial in nature than having fancier finishes.
So the amenities upgrade block, it's not going to be transported?
No. So with additional funding that we've been able to source through the stimulus, we are able to make it as a flood suitable building.
Just a question on the local roads and community construction round 3, 1.9 million, which we just recently got there. That has to be country projects. Council coming into contact. We should probably discuss in the meeting. Have you got proposals ready on what it should be spent on?
So following the discussion. Open discussion around here's the money, some ideas from staff, and we got some direction from that meeting. So be able to on that framework, be able to get some more information.
I just think it's worthwhile that we sort of have documented for the new council coming in, what their thoughts are in regard to that.
At the moment, that's documented through the workshop, so we've got the stuff from the workshop, which is sort of what I was definitely coming into the new council with having that information. So I'm happy to bring it up to the council, whether they want to provide a resolution to say this is before to the old councils, but yeah, controversial.
Mr. Mayor, council has to be careful because we're still in caretaker period, so any sort of the spirit of that caretaker provision is that any decision made by the council shouldn't bind a new council into the future. So, yeah, we can provide an FYI report for noting the progress of developing up some options for the new council, but it would very much need to be a decision of the new council.
That's what I said, but what we should be trying to do is give the advice of what the current council.
We don't want to make decisions.
To the new council. That will provide the information. We won't do approvals. The real moved and seconded by Councillor Benson Fogarty. Any further questions on that report? All those in favour? Works update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is for Council's capital works, which is our asset renewal works, generally funded by Council through depreciation, as opposed to the previous report. That is our grant funded major projects. So projects highlighted in here is the Renewal industrial area. So the works on Kelly and James Street have been completed there with an initial seal put in, and work will be going on with Stewart Street. At the moment with that, we're just securing the profile subcontractor to do the excavation work. And there'll be a call around that of whether we're comfortable that we can get the profile and do the work by Christmas, or we'd like to have that job open over Christmas. Whether we confident take the work done by Christmas, or we'll move to start after Christmas on delayed projects, but by the same token, you know, sort of mindful of what's happening over the Christmas period. Also highlight there the work on the Pepper Heritage Centre, just awaiting heritage approvals on that one, the Section 60 heritage approval. It's been a heritage for a while now, so it's coming up at the time that we'll if we don't receive it, we'll chase up heritage. But they do have an end date period they can do to respond, so we're getting near the end of that. And then so water and sewer, also the works starting up this year in terms of the resealing. We've done the first portion of the resealing works, and we'll be looking at in the new year doing the second round of resealing. That lines up with some construction projects, and then also work with resheeting and the other programs.
I'm happy to move, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Craig, seconded by Councillor Betcart, sorry.
I just note the local road resealing and the resheeting gravel roads. One's $810,000, the other's $740,000. Now, in the previous Carnarvon Shire Council, we used to spend $1 million on both those items, and we now have more roads than Carnarvon Shire used to. So I'm just concerned that we're not going down the path of budgeting for a reduced level of service. I'm just mindful that we seen the rates harmonisation program impact a lot of the rural areas. So I'm just flagging that concern that we don't want to see obviously most of that is out of town. And you know, we've made a commitment in this council since another relation to focus on development. That was an absolute decision of this council, and I just think going forward we need to be mindful of where we're spending the money, and the last 4 years we've focused on Denny is not the norm. It's the whole council.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and definitely take on board those comments, Councillor McGrath. So those amounts, they've been at the moment through our agreements down. So there's the amount of depreciation for those assets. That's what those depreciation amounts are now. The local road resealing that we talked there with at the 810,000 is just for local roads. It's not including regional roads and things like that. So not sure with that break up with the former councils. That's keeping the depreciation and the renewal around depreciation amounts keeps the asset turning over as planned. Investment above that amount is really a sort of a higher level, with council been wanting to renew assets at a quicker rate, which absolutely, and there's times when that needs to be done, as you've said, you highlighted over the previous 4 years since amalgamation, 4 or 5 years. So there'll be a question in terms with the new council of where they want to see with their investment. I will have that depreciation, and that's an ongoing concern for council as that keeps increasing, and the impact that has on the operational plan and financial statements. To then invest at higher levels, but definitely take on board the comments around the rates harmonisation. But that's what that would be. You may get into a realm of increasing that service above what that renewal amount is.
Councillor Benson.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, Mark, just in the local road resealing, there's 2 for Corinda Lane, and one's 32,000 and one's 108. What's, just curious what the difference between the two is. Page 67. Yeah, it just says to end off. Yeah, they both say Corinda Lane or to end off.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so just with Corinda Lane there, I think that's probably a mistake and something you need to clean up, because ultimately Corinda Lane, there's Corinda Lane, and then from memory it's Amy Lane, and sort of comes off. So there's 2 roads into there. Unfortunately, we have put it in there, so we'll update the detail. So that would be, and we normally do that when we come into an area like that. We would come in and do sort of all the little roads there. So 108,000 would be Corinda Lane, being from Lawson Cypher to the end. The one above that at 32 would be Amy Lane, being from Corinda Lane to the end of Amy Lane. So I apologise for not having that correct, and we'll update that.
Any other questions, Councillor Wallace?
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask Mark, in the local road resheeting, we've only done 3 kilometres in 6 months, and we've only got 6 months left of the program. Are you confident that we're going to complete that task? There seems to be an awful lot out there on the Carrathal Road that hasn't been started.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Yes, I do know that with the sort of way to start with other focuses that the operations staff have been on, but I am confident that we'll do it. It'll be a mixture of our staff as we focus on completion of the gravel road regeneration program. Important program for us to complete. And if required, getting contractors in there to complete that work. So yeah, I want to see the program completed, and we'll get the resources we need.
Could I ask a further question, Nick? These roads that you've got listed here for resheeting, there would be a program that we could look at where you were thinking in the next budget you were going to resheet? In the next budget, is there a plan going forward?
We're just commencing that now, leading up to Christmas, on what those the next program will be.
So that'll be up to the next budget. There's
Yeah,
not a 10-year plan hidden away there.
there's the information in the asset management plan that has around based on road conditions. So generally, as we start the budgeting process, we pull that information out of the asset management plan, we go and ground truth it and that. So in terms of a longer plan, and absolutely, we should be doing this year by year, we should have the information for years, and yeah, that's key to the asset management.
With the member of the Canadian, so I had a plan that we could look at. Where, you know, in not looking in the future, we could look at the past and say, well, this section was resealed or resheeted and blah, blah, blah. And you could get a program up, and I'm just wondering if that's in the next council's realm. Yeah, no, I think that's all. Oh, I just followed that. My question last council about the roads in Wanganoa, around the Renewal area, was that for gravel that's been used? Yeah. I was just hoping that that might follow through into the next budget.
Yeah, it definitely will. So sort of in this space, we do have our new manager operations starting very shortly, which is very good. And so that issue, specifically in that area, but generally in terms of road maintenance and the gravel that we do, that's one that I want to definitely focus on with them around. So him coming up and in that next program, yeah, definitely.
Councillor Rico.
Couple Road intersection or the actual rebuilding of the shoulders. Have they started that yet?
They're starting to work on the intersection. I've got an inspection on there tomorrow, actually.
Yeah, where I made a comment that harvest starts.
Yeah, and I've spoken with the operational staff around that and how they'll manage harvest.
Yeah, well, I thought we were going to actually do it after harvest once in
it is tricky for the discussion we had last time around with the Finley Road job, and that going into the new year. In terms of continuing with the program and getting through the program, the operations staff have made that decision. I've definitely asked them and highlighted that, you know, my understanding that we are in harvest, and that's they'll manage the program through that. So that's something we'll keep an eye on. So if there is any damage to the work. It is something that just we need to manage around, and we do understand, but we've also want to keep moving forward.
Any further questions? Move to second up, all in favour? Yes, carried. Item 10.6, operations monthly update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the operations section's monthly update works undertaken throughout the last month has been a challenge for the staff, leading on from the discussion just before without a manager. But I think the staff have done very well in terms of managing that. We've had plenty of engagement with the operational staff, which I've actually enjoyed, but I'm getting very keen to just jump out of that space, Mr. Mayor, and go back to being council's director. But it has been a good period just to work through some of the issues in the operations section and set it up to a new manager. Of note, and we know, is regarding the roadside weeds and grass and slashing in the area. So council, the operations staff continue with the slashing. At the moment, we have 2 slashers out in the area with a focus northeast going is to do that. The current program is to continue with the second round of slashing on the sealed roads. So there's come in a lot of roads, just done one pass. And as discussed before, they'll come back and do a second pass and clean up the first pass. And then moving on to slashing of the unsealed roads and that. So it's definitely the work on the unsealed roads outstanding. And so we've got the two slashers. One slasher will continue through at least until Christmas, but they'll be on finish the work by then. The second slasher at the moment will continue through to the end of November. We just have a resourcing issue that we need to manage through there, in that the tractor and that for the second slasher is also used as part of a tow behind rollway in terms of the grader maintenance and that. So at the moment, I've definitely got the focus, and the staff have the focus on having that available to do the slashing. But as we go on with November, there'll just be a sort of a resourcing management about when that goes into supporting grader crew. That being said, there's a discussion before about getting assistance and additional resources to do that. So I'm happy and so comfortable with getting the resources we need to do the work we need to do.
Thanks, mate. Just a question. The strategic breaks that the old Carnago used to have at this year, on the East West Road and up the Cobb Highway, all those strategic ones that stop potentially or limit. Are they all being done?
The Cobb Highway and the Maud Road have both been, their plough breaks, they've both been done. The strategic runs, and Carrollville Road, I think, is being done with the graders now. We did have a couple that run east west, Holloway and Ruben Tulare, the rest of this stage. And I'm not sure whether they got Ruben here and then grading the east-west road, or about to, which I haven't seen any whether that's happening or not.
You sort of
no, I'm aware of and sort of the the agreements that there's strategic fire breaks that are funded by RFS, and there's ones that have been funded by council, which we've got in the system there. So discussions with RFS about having more of what council funds being brought into RFS funding. I can't give any guarantees that RFS will come to the party with that money, but we can actually ask the question. I understand, talking with operational staff, there has been especially with the grader ones and that, because it's actually been able to free up, we don't need the rollers and that with doing this work with graders, so it frees that up so that we've been able to do the extra slashing. But if we still do have outstanding ones, it's very, for me, it's very important us doing it. The discussions from RFS have been there'll be an average fire season, and generally we think average is okay, but as the area manager Tony Whitehall said, average means there'll be 3 to 4 big fires. Yeah. So that's an average season for us, and highlighting the importance. So
37 was one big fire, and that wasn't
that's big enough. So definitely take that on board. Working with the staff around where the graders will be over the summer period, and council's normal process of having the graders in village areas so they can respond quicker. We're also just discussing with RFS just to make sure that all our planning on their registers are available, and also staff things like that. So in terms of that fire season preparation, it's definitely front of mind for us. If there are strategic fire breaks that have historically been done but haven't been done, I'll make sure that will become a priority.
And just for your information, talking to Tony Whitburn last week, he did say that this year should be the average, but he's really worried about next year. start of this year, next year could be particularly horrendous.
Promotion, he's right about it.
Yeah.
But he is a very good operator, so, yeah.
Councillor Croydon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mark, it's really pleasing to hear about the flushing and the increase, because I've had a couple of ratepayers from the rural areas, in particular the Moolamang or area towards Moolamang, approach me to say that they're very concerned about the flushing. And with things drying off, the risk of kangaroos and then the risk of fire is very prominent. Yeah, so that's good to hear that is occurring and we're trying to get on top of it.
Councillor
What
Minko.
raises the origin issues?
Up to you. Mark, just following on your slashing, we've only got 2 going, correct? Is that all we have, is 2 slashes?
We have the two slashers. We can bring in our additional slasher that we have out at the airport. And we know we've got to keep on with grass areas and that, but that's not full time. So historically, we've been able to bring that slasher in. We're finishing up the work they need to do at the airport, so that will become available.
Is it worth bringing that in? Because I think we're getting behind.
It's worth bringing it in, and I'll order it being used as a council slasher. It's not an airport slasher. It's a council-wide slasher for that. We're just working through resourcing.
Do you know how many Ks a day a slasher is able to do?
No, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that. I'll have to.
I think it's up 18. First time we is that wrong? No, it hasn't been up.
No, slasher.
We've had one slash.
Yeah, because I just a little bit concerned about how the sealed roads are probably getting slashed, but the dirt ones aren't. And this is what makes me think that we're getting further behind, because the dirt roads are just as a hazard as the bitumen.
My understanding of the discussion around that is historically the generation we've been behind spray, generally the gravel road was spray if required. So
You know, whether the last discussion last week, you know, whether the roads.
no, that's the issue we're dealing with at the moment, because the gravel, the unsealed roads haven't been sprayed. We'll definitely need to do a bit of slashing for those roads. I'm just trying to work through, okay, generally, if I'm talking to staff around and they're saying, you know, normally we wouldn't be slashing the gravel roads, but I drive around and see the same thing, that there's definitely a lot of gravel roads that need slashing, and so working that through and with the spraying. So we'll continue as quick as we're knocking them down now. We need to.
Of the roads that were sprayed, are we aware of how much they sprayed? Because it's a contractor coming in, and I don't think he's achieved much.
I'll follow that up. I know that the work that they did was stopped short of what the original engagement was, because it didn't look like, you know, just hot grass and weather conditions that we were getting a lot of benefit out of that. So we did, the original engagement was to spray all of council's roads, sealed and unsealed. But through lack of effectiveness of it, that we weren't going to continue it if it wasn't going to be effective, and then pick up more slashing.
Yeah. I'll wait to get your response.
Right. Someone to move the report be received. Moved by councillor Foggy, seconded by councillor Betts. Any further questions or comments on that? I think it just highlights such active.
Yeah, no, there'll be, I've already highlighted to staff, big changes just in how we do it. Discussed there before about our own spray rigs and critical nature of it, means that we need to be able to respond ourselves. Go back and then later in the work when we need to do it, so, yeah. Big one.
Any questions or comments, Phil?
Probably just the fact that there's a fairly big change within the organisation with particularly the weed spraying that was under the Central Motor County Council banner. They had a program that was, council used to put extra money in at the time for that extra spraying. It's come back under council. I think there's probably been a little bit of there's a bit of teething problem with that. So I think we're going to get some stuff there. Yeah, so I think that Mark and that, they'll get on top of that next year. They're very loud and clear, so I think we can take stock. And yeah, it's
Any further? All those in favour? Carried. 10.7. Thank you, Mr. Spring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this follows on from the discussion at the recent council workshop regarding requests on sealing and installing stormwater drainage at the end of River Street up near Rose Street there. So again, the information, background information and regarding the report and the recommendation, just that council considers this as part of the next operational plan, the capital works program for the operational plan. And then also, and what was discussed at the workshop, just a review into the provision of services generally in the large lot residential, the R5 area, because that's essentially this issue comes more around just that wider strategic policy position for council to take of how it wants to, what services it wants to provide in these areas into the future.
Thanks, Mark. Councillor.
Just, Mark, I just, in your report, the service provisions for R1 as opposed to R5, which this is R5, and it states quite clearly that the roads are, the streets are unsealed in those R5 areas, which that part of River Street is. There's no curb and gutter, no footpath, and the drains are open drains and culverts. So, and then they've got water supply, sewage services and domestic waste, which is generally not provided in R5. So I'm a little concerned that we're increasing the level of service to large lot residentials without actually getting a return for council, which I would have thought we'd be better off going down the path of rezoning those areas first and then providing those services so the council actually gets a return. Otherwise, we seem to be upgrading the service to you know, next thing we'll be looking at doing curb and gutter down Reuben to Levy Road. So, you know, I'm looking at cost for council and levels of service, and I just feel we're going down a path of providing more than what is in the table here for those areas, and what's going to stop some other street in R5 requesting the same level of service.
Thank you, Councillor McCradden. And yeah, that's why sort of that information has been provided, and this is part of the general strategic considerations for council. But in terms of the services and with water, sewer and domestic waste collection, they're that fee for service type thing. So council gets paid for that, but there is a limit because as housing density gets less, pro rata it costs council more. And discussion there about a normal block where you have 10 houses fronting it as compared to 4. But yeah, the discussions around that level of service for the roads, for what comes out of the general fund, is you know, I think a very much a relevant question for council, especially in terms of already developed areas. So going to an R1 zoning for this area would allow then the property owners to redevelop their area with small lot sizes. They're pretty well at the limit of minimum lot sizes at the moment, and with the allowance for connection to the sewage. But it's definitely a consideration. One, the other staff we need to be providing information, but definitely a consideration for council of actually how they support this development and fund it and manage it ongoing.
Councillor Betts.
Can I just correct Councillor McCran? He said R5 was unsealed. I think it clearly states they're generally unsealed, although sealed in select areas. So it's not quite correct to say that they're all unsealed. Some R5 large lots are actually sealed.
Just like a case of that, R5 large lot residential, anything under 5 acres has been changed now to be under the residential rate category. So they do pay exactly the same as what the other sort of River Street do in R1. So this was my point when we made that change, is that they will be expecting more services because they're paying exactly the same amount of money. So
I think that argument's flawed, Councillor Scrap.
Correct.
Well, the only thing I would comment, Mr. Mayor, is at the other end of River Street, who have been R1 Gigants and are paying very high rates, have got nothing. No sealed road, no curb and guttering, no drainage.
Conflict, this is discussed all the clear conflict of interest. This to me, because that's exactly where my property is.
It was just a comment.
Don't forget valuations on properties as well.
Right. You'll move the recommendation. Thanks, Councillor Wallace. Second, Councillor Betts. Any further questions or comments? I'll put to vote. All those in favour? Carried. 10.8.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at the recent workshop, discussed the draft terms of reference for the Renewal and Regional Airport user group. As discussed, this is a group that has somewhat been in abeyance over the last year or so, mainly due to COVID. Now with changes of how the community groups can operate, there's been two recent meetings of the user group, and council's given an undertaking to update the terms of reference for the user group in line with council's strategic committee framework. So the attached terms of reference are in line with that document. They have been presented, to the user group, and yes, staff are just recommending that council adopts the terms of reference.
Moved by Councillor Hall, sorry, I thought. A second?
Yeah.
Second by Councillor Betts. Any questions or comments to make? All those in favour?
No.
10.9 or what?
That's right. Okay, customer satisfaction survey. So the survey is completed approximately every 3 years. This year we surveyed 360 ratepayers. And overall, we had a minor decrease of 1 point in overall satisfaction with council performance. A lot of that could be contributed to COVID and the people not being able to access services as they typically would. Our top performing areas were the appearance of public areas, recreation facilities, emergency and disaster management. Improvement areas were planning and building permits, maintenance of unsealed roads, business development, providing value for rates and conditions of sealed roads. Previously, we did have questions around whether or not out of this survey we could drill down a bit further and distinguish between rural and residential. We found that we couldn't drill down enough to get good results, but that's something we'll take on board for the next survey and see if we can get that as a category so we can drill down a bit further. So we're asking council to receive a note, the survey.
I'll move the motion.
Moved by councillor Foley,
With the comment just to say, yeah, it was very pleasing, given all of the changes, that it was only 1 point less in the overall satisfaction rating. But I think the report also provides a great opportunity for the new council coming in and early next year, that perhaps we run a workshop with the staff in conjunction with the staff at the manager level and team leader level, that we can look at the survey in depth and really ask ourselves all of the question, what would it take to lift that next bit, and particularly lift to perhaps a 70% funding, where we're really shifting from average to good, which would be a strategic goal to aim for. And we've got the areas identified where we can improve. And I think a lot of that would be around significant teamwork to get that improvement. I think the workshop with the team would be a great starting point.
how far does that report go to the organisation?
Yeah, so we, now that it's been received by council and across the staff, it's also put on our website, and we can work with TIF to do some communications out to the ratepayers as well. And this report is used for a couple of things. One, it helped inform the end of term report, which we'll talk about later, but it also helps to inform our new community strategic plan. So that will come into the workshops we'll do with the new council and staff when developing those new plans for the new council.
We've got a move of councillor Fogarty, seconded by councillor Bull. Any further questions? All those in favour? 10.10, combined delivery program.
The operational plan, this is the first report on the 2021-2022 operations plans, the first quarterly report. So we have committed to do 121 actions this year. And as you'd expect with the first report, most of these are for either on track or in progress, which you'd expect at this time of year. 19 actions are yet to be commenced and 3 have been complete. We do have one that's been stopped, and that's in relation to supporting the youth muster, which was of course cancelled this year. So that's the reason for that one stopped action. Any questions?
Well, I've got a question for you. Sunny, look, it's probably more related to money. And Mike, it gets back to the question or the comments that we had previously around the road work. And because in point 4.2.1, where it talks about asset renewal and road renewal, it says works related to road renewals yet to commence for 21-22. Is that just an oversight, or because my thoughts were it didn't really correlate with the information we had previously in 10.5. And also given that this was November, why haven't we commenced?
So, thank you, councillor Fogarty. So as a report, this is to the end of September.
Okay.
The one part of it, it's not the full answer. So that item is relating to our capital works renewals and that. So that's for projects in this year related to that. Curb gutter replacements, the one on Road from the old Windsor Shire, there's one along Hastings Street. So a lot of those projects that are going through preliminary work now and will go out to for tendering to be delivered early in the new financial year. So in terms of a project there, yeah, they're coming in the new year. In going through this, I've put the status on there as being yellow, exactly to ensure that it's come across and it's great that it's sort of been picked up and highlighted, because we definitely don't want to get into a position, as we do most years, we're into May and still have these projects. Personally, I'd rather have been a bit further along the preliminary line, but spoken to staff about that, they're understanding and happy with how they're now quickening up that pace. So in terms of delivery, yes, expected to be delivery, but we just need to have a bit of a focus until we keep going with it, and that's where this is going.
That's good. Thank you.
Right, we've got the recommendation there, we've received a monthly report. Council Fitz. Council Findings. I think it also just what you raised there, Council Findings, goes back to what Councillor Flack said earlier about where we've been and where the new council should go. And we've got to get that balance right instead of concentrating like we have been fixing a lot of the stuff. Maybe think that's been done, but let's get back to the balance we should be. We're both getting done well. All right, moved and seconded. All those in favour? Carried. On the quarterly budget review.
I'd like to introduce Murray Chan, who is our new finance manager. Twice you get to today. And Murray's here to present the career.
Section 203 of the local government regulation 5 refers not later than 2 months after the end of each quarter, the responsible accounting officer must prepare and submit to the council a budget review statement, the quarterly budget review statement. This has been reviewed as at September, and there's an inclusion of 8,400 into the income statement, which brings our council to a surplus of 14 million, and after removing the capital grants, a surplus of 60,000 of operating results. The inclusion of 8,400,000 is mainly due to inclusions of income. 5 million of it was grant income. Why 5 million was not captured before, it's because we had an accounting statement, 2 accounting statements that was introduced about 1.5 years ago. And the effect of it after 30th June. The budget has been adopted in May, and after June there are more information that is uncovered. And there's 5 million of existing income that needed to be added. That income being mostly grant incomes, and it is detailed in the report, in the attachment of the report. Also in that, that is on the income statement and the capital budget, right? Subject. 5 million was included for the income, and then after the budget process, there was 1 million that came from for the senior living project. So that was unknown at the time of drafting and approving the budget, and 2 million for the fixing local roads grant that was received after the budget process. Now, capital budget is an equivalent
inclusion of 8 million, which are the projects that was already ongoing. Because of the accounting standards, it has to be, all these projects needed to be added. There's a different kind of treating the information. And we've had, as a consequence, 8 million, and the projects are itemized in the attachment 1. Now, the quarterly budget review statement, as per section 203 requirement, must be accompanied by a report as to whether the statement indicates council to be in a satisfactory financial position, and the declaration is attached that we are in a satisfactory financial position, and we're on track with the budget as of September, and also November as date. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we're correct.
Just some of the, I've got to print out, so I can make some page numbers, but the, in the capital activity review statement, we've got in other assets and infrastructure budgeted, or revised budget figure of 450,000, and the quarterly review's got $2.6 million. It's a big number, and way over the original budget. I'm just wondering where that figure's come from. If I can probably find the page number for you. I think it's on page 44. I think. Yeah, so it's the other assets infrastructure. Down near the bottom of the page, we have 452,000 budgeted, and then we've got a quarterly allocation of 2.6 million.
Capital activity review statement.
Capital activity review statement.
Is that the one we are addressing?
Yes.
On the column for this September quarter, it's the last figure in that column at 2.6.
2.9 million the land and the building.
It's in infrastructure.
Other assets infrastructure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I would like to take that question on notice and provide an answer to that after.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, there's a couple of questions here you probably need to look up what's going on. Just one other one on the page 149. We've got 2 line items there that we're not budgeted for. However, we've got a year-end figures there that add up to $676,000, which is there's retirement living, North Depot redevelopment, and Town Hall Civic Precinct redevelopment. There's nothing in the original budget column. There's nothing in any variations, but we've got an actual year-to-date figure of $670,000. just not budget, I just wonder why we would a year-to-date figure that we haven't budgeted on.
Has been added into the US yet, will be added in the second part.
So these three projects, so they are, yeah, as I think we've discussed previously, we didn't have the figures to go into this year's budget. So there, but there, however, there has been some spend against these projects, but it hasn't been yet added into the QBRS, so we'll go into the second quarter.
Right, okay, thank you. And just one last one, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Just in the comments page, which is towards the end, page 151. Just as consultants have been spent on $45,000. This I'm assuming that's this financial year. I've got figures of $108,000 on consultancies for the seniors living.
Which page is that?
151, the comments.
So that would be for the first quarter. So I'll go back to that would have been the accumulation of 108, which I think would have gone into the previous financial year as well. If I remember rightly, when we did those figures. So I think this is for the first quarter. Okay. But I will double check that, Councillor Craig, and come back to you.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions? The general manager's had to leave because she's got an emergency at home. Now, recommendation, you've got a mover that be received. That's all. Moved by Councillor Bennett. Any further questions or comments? All those in favour? 10.12. Reserves report, October.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the investments as of the end of October were 47.5 million. Interest earned was approximately 21,000, and interest accrued but not received is approximately 106,000. We estimate that the benefit of our continued use of the Imperium platform is sitting around 23,000 at this stage. So we're asking Council to note and receive the October report on investments.
I'm happy to move this instrument.
Moved by Councillor Cruz, seconded by Councillor Wallace. Comments?
So could you just repeat your statement regarding the Imperium?
Yeah, so Imperium, we're looking at the Imperium. So we were just continue to calculate the benefit of using Imperium. So as you'll see on page 157 on my booklet, at the top of, there's a chart at the bottom of the page, and you'll see in blue there, that's our estimate benefit of using Imperium, and it's 22,892 to be exact.
And the cost of the Imperium has been?
It's 12.
12K for you. That gets a tick.
Yeah.
Any further comments or questions? Councillor Wallace.
Mayor, can I just ask, on page, 155, the National Australia Bank, 41% of all our investments is, I thought we had a limit on individual.
Developed too, Mac.
I'm not worried about the National Bank. I'm just, we have a limit somewhere in our council plan of so much percent in one institution as against another.
Yeah, we do have a criteria set by the government, I believe, and treasury investment policy, that we need to follow. When doing our investments, we ensure we follow those. Do you know the percentage of your head, Bruce?
Yeah, so with the limit for A1 funds, which it falls into is 40%. So during the month, because of movements in the total of our funds invested, it reduced by about 1.3 billion.
Yeah.
So it ended up going over the limit.
Yeah.
But this has already been addressed in November, when we had about 2 million of net term deposit maturing, so we invested it elsewhere. So going forward, that should increase.
Yeah, so 40% is the limit.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Councillor Pratt, question.
Well, that name as it comes off.
Well done.
Any further questions or comments? Yeah, thanks for the explanation, Bruce. Did ring a bell too, man. Good. Any further questions, comments? All those in favour? Carried.
It rang a bell because we had money invested in the Banana Republic in Queensland. didn't we? We were worried about it.
Wasn't 40% either.
No, it was not.
That's, so therefore I'll close the meeting. And thank you very much for your attendance.